Good morning. It's Pop again, Dennis Murray. Um, Today is Popcast 33, and it's called Find Your Own Wisdom. It's going to pick up from where we left off yesterday, but I want to begin first with a few personal comments. It's a gorgeous day here in Maryland, just a little bit of breeze, plenty of sunshine. I had my coffee out back this morning, and it's all good. Uh, Yesterday, I had a socially distanced lunch out back with my daughter Betsy and my son Dennis Jr. and his son Trey, Dennis Murray III. What are you going to call him? And it was fabulous. Dennis Jr. is a nurse who works in the operating room uh, and has for many years. And he is currently a traveling nurse. He takes a contract, goes to a hospital that needs an extra nurse for a while, and then he finishes that contract and takes another contract some other place, with time off in between to come home and spend time with his kids and grandkids. And so he's leaving Sunday for a contract in New Jersey, and it was really nice to have a long, long afternoon. We had hamburgers and fries and dessert from the restaurant that my daughter Katie is a manager of, my granddaughter Katie. So it was just, like, wow. And this afternoon, I'm going to have a similar experience at Betsy's backyard. Um, Her son Mickey and his wife Allison are bringing my brand new great granddaughter Lucy, and I put on a mask and I'm allowed to hold her briefly, and it just gladdens my heart. And also, Betsy's son Connor and his fiancee Laura are coming, and their son, Betsy's son Patrick, will be there, and probably also Betsy's mother-in-law Pat. Uh, so we'll all maintain a distance. It's after lunch, so there's an easier effort to maintain a social distance. But I'm understandably feeling pretty happy with these moments in my life. And they're part of wisdom, and they're part of awe. Um, it, it's There's a richness to life that I understand not everyone gets to share. Um, there is such a thing as privilege, and there are those people who, for example, now in the quarantine, don't have a job and can't pay the rent. Whereas most of my family has a job, and those that don't have loved ones who have a job, so everybody's able to pay the rent. Um, I'm not unaware of the difference, um, but being fortunate means there should come with it a sense of gratitude that's a little larger than your natural sense of it, and you should, live this and feel it, and the joy should be pretty large, while at the same time you're aware of the sadness of others, and you do what you can to try to help. So this is, part of wisdom when we were talking yesterday about how to live in the middle. And the answer I gave for all the questions about how do you deal with somebody who's racist, homophobic, um, who has the all the wrong attitudes towards the role of women in our society. And my answer was find your own wisdom. work from your all and figure the case and circumstances and uh, find your own wisdom. It seems like, on the one hand, a very unsatisfyingly general answer and almost arguably a cop out. Like, wow, that's all you got for us? Find your own wisdom. Um, but I think it's honest. I don't believe it's a cop out. I think it's honest. It is my wisdom that the facts and circumstances that confront you when you're trying to live in the middle with somebody who's at the extremes. And bear in mind, part of the extremes is just as much the other extreme as the ones that I've mentioned so far. There may be those who think that life is meaningless. There may be those who think that all suffering is horrible and should be eliminated. They have no appreciation at all for the learning value of facing difficulties. There may be those who think that anything goes, that there's no values, there's everything is all relative. And so, for those of us who are somewhat more centrist in our feelings, that it may not be easy to figure out what values are, but there does seem to be all calling us towards each other, and that's a seemingly indisputable value. Indisputable in the sense that it's wise, not in the sense that it's proven. Yeah, so let's say I used the wrong word, indisputable, and let's just back away from that word. It's not wise to feel that there's no such thing as awe, and to feel that we're not being called to each other. So it's disputable, but it appears that wisdom, the better part of wisdom, is to see this genetic phenomena of awe in the heart of our psyche, and that it calls us to each other. Um, and interesting case. I just used the wrong word, indisputable, and it happens to be an important wrong word. Um, if I had gone forward with that, I end up saying, oh, well, everything I say is right and everything you say is wrong. It's a short step. If you start with, well, what I think is only wisdom and not knowledge, it can't be proved, and I try to remember that, then your occupation of the middle and your efforts to welcome others there um, have a better chance of success. But then you're left with, you have to find your own wisdom. And I want to talk about psychological type in this context. Now, we talked a little bit previously about the discoveries that are pretty widespread now in the world of psychology, that there seems to be characteristics about us, traits, some say, or dynamic features, others say, that allow us to, in effect, categorize ourselves only for the purpose of a greater appreciation of common aspects of personality that differ from person to person. Nobody can be adequately categorized. Nobody fits in a category. Um, but these categories are helpful when you remember that they're not exact and they're not correct, but they're helpful. Then they are helpful at that point for getting a better understanding of yourself and your relations to others. And you will find uh, that almost every piece of advice about how you should deal with a particular set of facts is deeply influenced by the psychological type of the person speaking. And so, parental advice, for example. So, your parent was a certain type of person who was very factually oriented and very decisive. And they tell you do this and that and the other in these circumstances, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. But you're not that kind of person. And those don't seem like the kind of behaviors that are appropriate for you or well chosen for you. So the advice is taken with a grain of salt, taken with gratitude. Here's mom or dad trying to be helpful. They've been there, they've parented. I'm parenting for the first time. I'm scared out of my bejesus, hoping that I'm not going to screw up this wonderful infant that God has entrusted to me. And but you still have to do it your way. And so that means that the parents' advice is almost always colored by their own personality. There are people like me who sort of live in the. I used to live in the intellectual clouds, and happily for me, my wife Gail helped bring me down out of the clouds. And then when I got really lucky and was able to babysit my grandbabies for a long time, there's nothing like wiping bottoms and faces to bring you out of the clouds. And so, but for me, it's kind of like, oh, well, let them do what they want. And my wife said, are you nuts? You got to give them guidance. And I came to realize that the guidance she gave them came from her personality. She was warm. She was factually based. Um, and she was extroverted and relatively decisive. So she'd jump in and get things done, and she'd have them value jumping in and getting things done. And she ended up having huge positive influence on four children whom we dearly love and are just somewhat in awe of. And to see the job they're doing as grandparents is like, wow, are you kidding me? How sweet is life to have this come your way? So now, uh, uh, two of my three living children are grandparents, and the third one has a reasonable expectation of the same in the next couple of years. And for me to see my kids be grandkids, like, wow, incredible. And to see the grandkids, with their babies, it's like, oh, what a blessing. But this doesn't change the what I'm offering today as wisdom is you got to find your own wisdom. That any particular advice I might give you about how you should deal with somebody in the middle is going to be deeply influenced by my personal psychological type, and it is of limited value for you because your facts of your life and your personality type and the particular facts of the case are influenced by the personality type of the other people you're dealing with. So, how you would speak to someone who you want to welcome to the middle is influenced very much by your grasp of their ability to hear, their psychological type, which includes learning styles and openness or lack of it to certain things. And once you become tuned in somewhat to the personality type of the person you're talking to, you may adopt a way of talking to them that's not your strong point, but you think it has a better chance with them. The It's complexity squared. Each of us is incredibly complicated. The facts of the universe as they present themselves on Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock are incredibly complicated. And then when you involve somebody else, and like 99% of life is dealing with other people, the dogs and cats and fishes and the birds and the bees, you can manage those. But dealing with other people, that's really difficult. So here on this particular moment, you've got all the complexity of that person. So, like I said, complexity squared. No wonder I don't want to tell you, oh, this is what you do in this circumstance, and this is what you do in that. Because I'd just be uttering, nonsense. And I do that often enough, but I try to avoid it. Okay, so enough for today. Take care. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.